Hey everyone, welcome to the Got 10 Minutes podcast, the podcast for product teams brought to you by Samelogic.com, the AI-powered product research platform for everyone. Today we speak with Liz Pouya, who is the lead product manager at chillipiper.com. Hey Liz, welcome to the show.
Hey Dwayne, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you. So, Liz, I'd love to find out about how you got into the industry, how you got into product management, and also what it's like working at Chili Pepper. So, if you could go as far back as possible, probably talking about inspirations from like childhood or in your teenage years, what got you into product and why did you choose this industry?
Yeah, this is a fun question because I definitely took a very unconventional way to get into the industry. In college, I studied physiology and neurobiology. So I was in the sciences and really interested in medicine. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I was fully preparing to go to medical school, took the MCAT. And what actually ended up happening was my junior or senior year, I started a medical device company and I worked on that with a few other students and really got into kind of the entrepreneurship side of the medical industry, which is not something I really knew I had within myself. And that kind of piqued
Mm,
some other interests, like, wait, maybe medicine is not the only path I should consider in life. So I just kind of took a chance and went into tech and I started there in sales. So being a BDR was my entry point to the tech industry, like a lot of people. And then from there, I went into the AE role and then it's actually how I found Chili Piper. So I started at Chili Piper as an AE as well. And then as the needs of the company evolved and changed, and some of my strengths of, being a more technical AE became apparent, I transitioned after a year to the CS role and was supporting the bulk of our customers when we were a super small CS team. And with Chili Piper being a very technical product, it was definitely a lot to learn. There were a lot of engineering elements to pick up on pretty quickly, especially as our product was still very much early in development. And after, I think it was a little over a year in the CS role, I started to notice that our product team was working on this freemium initiative, and there was a lot of room for micro experimentation, and it's not something anyone was owning at the time. So with me just being kind of a scientist and always thinking about experimentation and hypotheses and ways to prove things and being very logical and taking that scientific approach to kind of understanding the answer to a question, I approached our co-founder and CEO Nicholas with like a job description and was
mm.
like, hey, I see no one's owning this thing right now and there's kind of a gap to do that and I want to take it on, and here's all the different things that I'm going to do, and here's how I'm going to kind of help this freemium initiative make sure that's very data driven. And he was like, cool, it's yours. So that was my first entry point into product.
Wow, that's fascinating. Physiology and neurology, you said?
Neurobiology, yeah, basically.
Neurobiology. Wow, that's great. What things, if any, do you see have you taken from like studying those topics, and what things have you applied from those fields to your current role?
Yeah, the biggest thing is experimentation.
Mm,
And there's a lot of parallels between the way that scientists think and the way that product managers think. As a scientist, I was working in a lab at the University of Connecticut where I went, and we were experimenting on flies to conduct to conduct research on various proteins and the impact they had on Alzheimer's disease. And a lot of that experimentation requires testing something by changing one variant or multiple variables and then seeing the impact. And that's exactly what product is, except you're not testing on flies, you're testing on humans and product. And you kind of want to see if by doing one thing, you can generate the behavior that you're trying to yield. And so that is kind of the approach I've taken to being in product. And I think what's helped me transition into this role really quickly. I don't have a formal product background, so it's been a lot of just learning within the context of Chili Piper and a lot of self-teaching. And I will also say that really understanding when to kind of draw conclusions from data and not draw conclusions from data is one of the biggest things that I learned in my college, like formal education, is, does someone saying they like something or two people saying that it works for them enough to make a decision? Like, usually no, you do need to have significant sample sizes, and you do need to make sure that you're taking into consideration who you're talking to and how many people you're talking to, and just basics like that.
and what things from like the BDR and AE roles? I think probably those are more evident, but like you could probably speak to that as well.
Yeah, I definitely can. I think those roles are definitely instrumental in just kind of the user mentalization aspect of product and just understanding your persona. And at Chili
Mm.
Piper, I can confidently say I've done every major part of the business. So that's really set me up for success and kind of landing in product. And I have no intention of going to any other part of the business. I really do love where I am now. But being in sales, I had hundreds of conversations with prospects and I was able to understand what they were looking for, why they were buying, what their needs are, what they're considering in the new business phase versus in the existing business phase. And then as a CSM, that's really where I got to understand the product and all the technical capabilities and limitations. And that's also where I really got to kind of understand what are admins' needs, what are their frustrations, what are their pains, what are we solving really well, what are we not solving really well, what are the gaps in the product. So I think both of those were definitely very critical to me being able to set me up successfully as a product manager for sure.
So I do see like a topic that you're kind of focused on here, and you seem very passionate about with your scientific background, which is experimentation. What are some of the your favorite experiments to run? And yeah, like yeah, what are some of your favorite experiments to run?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In the project that I've been involved in at Chili Piper for the last 6+ months or so, I've been less involved in like micro experimentation where we're trying to, manipulate the smallest thing on a micro level and maximize the yield and optimize conversions in that way, like you would be in a freemium product. We've been rebuilding our back end, which basically requires a lot of development effort to essentially replicate functionality. Like it's not sexy, but we've also tried to at the same time balance some of those like quick wins in a way that's efficient and doesn't affect our timeline and the goals that we're trying to meet. So as of recently, I haven't been involved in a lot of the really fun micro experiments, but typically we do a lot of moderated and unmoderated testing with we have like a team of RevOps admins that we're really close with that provide us a lot of feedback. And that's kind of been our main methodology lately because we have been assessing large scale, high level things, and then we'll kind of figure out which direction to go in. So we're starting super, super high level and we'll create these prototypes and various versions of these prototypes. And they're usually in Figma and our UX researcher Taylor is awesome and helps with this. And then from there, we're really paying attention to kind of like the macro questions that our prospects and our participants are asking in those experiments, like what are they really focusing on? What are they not focusing on? If there was something we really thought they'd get super excited about, like, are they making observations about it in these calls or are they completely disregarding it, which does happen often? And then we'll kind of go back from there and do multiple rounds and see if we're able to kind of get users to focus on the thing that we want them to. And if they're not, then maybe we're just completely missing the mark. So we do a lot of prototype testing in that way. And then we also do some A/B testing as well. We actually just got Chameleon to do some more of those like onboarding, user flow, in-app tests, and kind of test some product language and the paths that different users are taking and seeing if we can influence their behavior with the different nudges that we're putting inside the app.
Got it. For those who don't know, could you probably delve deeper into what micro experiments are? I do know there's like a huge, or not a huge committee, but like a few people in the UX community and product management community who understand what atomic design is, but probably not apply the same principles to like experimentation, which is kind of very similar. But like from your aspect, what do you think, or how would you explain micro experimentation to someone who doesn't know about it?
Yeah, so the way I would explain it, and the way that I understand it is like essentially thinking about where you can make really small changes in the app or within a specific feature that have really large yields. Or maybe there are changes that aren't going to directly impact your bottom line. Like they're not the things that your leadership team cares about because they're going to generate tons and tons of new revenue, but they are the things that are going to be making your users experience and approach to using the feature or the application overall a lot better, and they're going to significantly deliver on those usability improvements. So for example, navigation is one that you can run a lot of micro experiments on. Like, how are people typically navigating around the application? Is there a flow that is just taking them way too much time? Can you test various ways to get them somewhere that they're trying to go to faster? Are there things that are hidden but that should be more visible? So those are the different types of things that I would consider to be micro experiments, but they're generally not like the big things that you're launching on a go-to market level.
And what are the inherent benefits from running these experiments?
I think the benefits of running these experiments are typically when we notice we're getting like a lot of feedback from the CS team, and I'll just give you kind of an example contextually, or the support team around frustrations that a user is having in our app or an admin's having. It's usually like in aggregate because they don't know where something is, they don't know how it works, or they expected it to perform X, but it actually did Y. So it's really just a lack of setting proper expectations. And these micro experiments just help us kind of reobserve the expectations that we are currently delivering to the user and then realign with what they're expecting to receive and then iterate and improve from there to make sure that they're more aligned. So our goal at Chilli Piper is to have an application that is really independent for our admins to use. And it is pretty complex in terms of the capabilities of what it does and how to configure it. But we're always trying to make sure that we're not creating confusion and that we're creating less support tickets. Those are some of the OKRs and KPIs that we measure by. And our CSMs feel less overwhelmed and overloaded by just the admins and how they go about their day-to-day configuration and management of it.
And like, I'm pretty sure this like does help a lot with fostering a culture of like iteration, right? A constant iteration. How does it like improve? If say, for example, if a team should adopt this process of like micro experimentation, how does it help them to build faster? And you did allude to the fact of it helping to alleviate a few some customer frustrations, as you know, like you can like test a lot of things at once. Yeah, how does it help in that regard?
Yeah, I'd say something that I've learned probably in the last 6 months or so, or maybe paid more notice to, is to not become too set on a particular vision of how something should work. Especially as a
Mhm.
product manager, it's very easy to perform your research and do your competitive research and talk to customers and users and your internal team and think something should work one way, and then get really, really set on that and spend all this time developing it. And then by the time you're done developing it and you ship it to customers, like their expectation is completely different, or your
Mhm.
research didn't yield something that you should have discovered or uncovered initially, and then they're using something that's completely different than what you were hoping. So micro experiments are a really great way to kind of continuously ship MVPs and ship features iteratively, which is something I really much believe in. So you're getting releases to them much faster. They're really excited about those changes much faster. They're able to use a product in not a way that creates overwhelming change. Like one day I log into the app and it looks like this, and then next week it's completely different. It's something that they can manage and maintain familiarity with. And so if you do end up making a decision that you notice maybe decreases some numbers or KPIs in a way that aren't favorable, you have the ability to also quickly pivot and iterate back into a direction based on the data that you now have. Like, we shouldn't have done this, but now we need to maybe reconsider a different path, and it's not going to be a heavy lift or cause significant delays or a lot of resources to go back and change it.
Got it. So this is like really complex as well. You know, like managing so many things. Like being a product manager is very complicated. You know, it's rewarding
So
but very
complicated.
complicated.
Yeah.
What are some of the most challenging things that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. You're as a product manager, you're talking to everyone in the business. You're talking to marketing, you're talking to CS, you're talking to leadership. And the really challenging part is managing all these different relationships. I would say it really does require you to kind of, in the back of your mind, always have compartmentalized who am I speaking with, what are their needs, why do they care about this, and respond in such a way that allows them to continue to do their job. Something that I've really learned as a product manager is that you are going to be getting all of the questions that everyone needs answered for people to do their job. And if you can find a way to automate and scale that in a way that blocks a lot of your time and releases a lot of your time, you're going to kind of set yourself up for success. Prioritization really helps with that. I don't just mean like on a roadmap feature level, but also prioritization of the things that you do and spend your time on day to day. And also making sure that you are consistent as possible in all of the different areas of the way that you communicate with the internal team. So if you have to regularly provide marketing updates on something, like they need to know exactly every single week where to expect that update, what type of information to receive in it. Same thing with the CS team, the leadership team, and anyone else that is a stakeholder you interact with daily. And I've kind of learned that as long as I'm consistent, I will start to get less questions and people will be less confused about where to access certain information. But making sure that I have all of those relationships unlocked is definitely one of the most challenging aspects of being a product manager, especially for someone who's very, very introverted. But I guess it's nice that we're all remote now.
Mm. So I'd love to contrast that with some of the most rewarding things you do as well. Like, you love experimentation as well. So I'm pretty sure like having a rewarding user experience is one of those things. But like, what are some of the most rewarding things you'd say do, or what are some of the most rewarding things you experience as a product manager?
I think the most rewarding thing is just seeing everyone come together to is when and this is like a really niche moment, is like when I see the engineers and the product designers and the CSMs and the account managers like all come together and we have this really valuable discussion and are able to kind of contribute and understand the same language that we're talking about. Like we all know the problem. We all have a really, really productive discussion and we all know exactly what the takeaways are and what the next steps are and how to achieve something in particular. It's just really beautiful seeing people who understand the mission are able to contribute to that mission. And I think that is a testament to something larger, which is you have something that everyone is really excited about and they know exactly what the purpose is. One challenge I've had at various points is, making sure that the engineers and the product designers are fully aware of the challenges that they're trying to solve for. Sometimes we can get too lost in the technical details when we're building just to build.
Mm.
But when you constantly remind everyone, like, who is the persona that we're building for? Why do we have to build this? What are they going to get from this? Why is this important? Why is it worth 20 hours of dev time for us to build and ship this thing? And then everyone comes together and they can kind of align on that and equally chip in and then eventually come up with a solution that just really hits the nail on the head until we ship and of course prove that. I think is a really, really awesome thing. And then you of course follow up and see how that actually translates into the usage of the feature. But then when that kind of hits the nail on the head as well, and that gets relayed back to everyone who's involved, it's just a really motivating feeling. It's like winning a race. So I think that's definitely one of the most rewarding aspects.
Alignment is very important. So this is my last question here. What one weakness have you turned into your strength? I ask everyone who comes on the show this question, by the way.
Yeah, this is a funny question. So I really struggle with when people ask me for my opinions, specifically on like UI, UX. It makes me cringe. And this happens, I want to say, like almost every day, every other day. Like, hey Liz, what do you think about this thing that I just commented on in Figma or over Slack? Like we just, changed this to look like this. What do you think? And maybe this is the scientist to me, and I'll kind of tie it back to that. And that's just being how my brain works. But I I find it really difficult to answer that question. And it would be really simple if I could say like, oh yeah, I think it looks great, or that's really cool. And I do have like these thoughts and preferences sometimes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. And I'm not the end user. Like if I'm not the end user, then there's really no purpose in asking that question. So I think that particular mindset and tendency has forced me to think about how to better enable the team. And this kind of goes into what I was saying earlier, to think about the questions that are going to help them understand if what they have built or created or designed is actually useful, not just useful to me. So I kind of turn it back on those people who are asking me those questions, and I'm asking, if I were the user, I might feel XYZ because of this thing or because of this thing that's not there. If I were the user, I would consider ABC. So I'm trying to kind of enable and train everyone else's mindset to adopt the same mindset that I have in that regard, just because we don't want to build products based on opinions. It's a very, very bad thing to do. And once you kind of get into that habit, it's hard to reverse out of. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I have noticed that is just something that I've tried to kind of turn into, I guess, a strength among myself and then also everyone I work with.
Got it. have constant conversations and validate those hypotheses. That's the only way to build great products. Thank you so much for your time today. Learned a lot about what you do, about also a lot about what happens at Chili Piper. And I'm looking forward to share this episode with or audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dwayne. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Awesome. And thanks for listening to the Got 10 Minutes podcast. To stay in touch, please follow us on LinkedIn or the podcast app you're listening to this on right now for more episodes. Take care.